on here. There we go. Sorry, guys.
Okay. Let us know if anyone is on.
We can start it.
Okay. Anybody tuning in remotely?
Recording in progress.
We just see this one that says Adam's phone.
Okay. All right. Well, we will call the meeting to order. We have a quorum and we'll just introduce well, first I'll say that we're absent are Adrian Sweet, Dave Morrow, Mark Poulin, Tom Rovasier, and Richard Waitman. So introduce ourselves for the record.
Dave Sargent.
Chris Leahy.
Parsons.
And Dan Morris. Eric Henderly. Crack staff.
Yep.
Planner. All right, so we'll move right along. I'm not going to ask for a volunteer as a rapporteur, and I'll also explain why the minutes item D is tabled. Oh, hi. I didn't get to it. At our last meeting, we were down to 6, and we had a very full agenda and a very full room, and we just said, we needed all to attend to what was being discussed. And so I'll get to those minutes and sometime before the next meeting and send them out. And I think we can do that for this one too. I'm expecting this to be a lot less information intensive than the last one. Okay, so updates on membership, staff support, and issues related to the process of the OSRC. Mentioned that Richard Waitman spoke to me about his designing committee, and mayor's office has not heard that officially, so by our reckoning, he's still a member in full standing, and we are missing him tonight. I will point out that my term as chair expired about 19 months ago. And come February, we might want to reconsider who's leading these meetings. Just thought I'd put notice out there. Anyway, where were we? I think we just hold off on discussing any kind of adjustments to membership until we hear officially from Richard. Brings us to Kate and the EC.
Yes, so the only project before the CPC of interest to us is the East Gloucester school site. And the city was slated to present to the CPC on that in August, but asked for more time because they said they were revising their design and wanted some additional time for the design work and the associated budget to be completed. So I guess we'll expect some changes from what we all saw through the public input process. And they're due to present. Are you presenting? Yeah.
We haven't, it may be the consultant
Okay.
team because they just.
Someone will present to the CPC on September 22nd on the latest iteration of what that is meant to look like.
You have any idea, what type of revisions that they're going to make? Or
That's what we'll find out on the
if you don't have
22nd.
any idea at this point?
Do not.
Okay.
And a site visit should be scheduled soon should be scheduled before the presentation on the 22nd as well. But those meetings are all online, just like ours. So if you wanna, I think it would be great to tune in online to that meeting and hear that presentation if you can, if you have the time, but I'll report on it when we meet.
What's the date?
next. September 22nd.
The Monday.
Monday, they're from 6 o'clock. I think the city is going first, so it'll probably take place soon after 6 o'clock.
And the following day, the fourth Tuesday, that will be our meeting.
Okay,
the
perfect
next-
timing.
The next day.
Mm. You have a busy week.
That's me. Glutton for punishment. Volunteer myself to do
Yeah.
it. Diagnose it.
I know.
Thank you. Any further questions for Kate? Right. Business section, extending the term of the open space and recreation plan. Eric?
Yes, so unfortunately, I had a call set up that with MAPC who helped us develop the open space recreation plan, but that was canceled. So okay, sorry about that. Essentially, it's a extension of, I did speak on this before, but extending the open space plan an additional 3 years until 2032. It's the primary focus is the action plan. I wanted to get a spreadsheet up for you guys. I just haven't gotten around to it, but I'll try to get that into the Google Drive this week just to show all the goals and maybe have a little benchmark of where we are on it, on some of them. From what I've gotten from our consultant with MAPC and also with the person at DCS is that it's not required for a public hearing. There's a very limited time window here. So like the 7-year action plan a lot of it is still relevant. A lot of it still hasn't been concretely completed. We can extend a lot of it, but I would like some of when I get that spreadsheet up, just to see like what maybe we could expand on or how that would be communicated as you guys sort of responding back to me. So it's not like an open meeting law. Any issues with that, but it is in the open space recreation plan as well. You can see them. I'll try to get a spreadsheet up.
Eric, if I may, just to recap, the idea is to extend the term from 7 years to 10 years.
Mhm.
So that would carry us out
2032.
to 2032. Okay. And our action plan lays out actions for 7 years, and we would basically be adding 3 columns to the table, and maybe there are some that we could already mark for those outer years.
Mhm.
Is that the thinking?
Yeah,
Okay.
and some of them, we do have a 1 to 3 year window that have not yet been addressed, so it's some adjustments to that, but
Yep.
it really can be a resubmission of the 7-year plan as well, but I do think we should show what we've done and what is in process.
Okay.
The annual reports address a lot of what, we've done. I know we're working on a new one, but we have to get this in by the end of September, so we need to get it before the new semi-annual report. But we can incorporate a lot of what's been addressed in those into the open space plan. What you and Tom are working on speaks directly to some of those objectives. So, it is a living action plan that we can, add to. And kind of there may be some things we can take off. I have to look at it more in depth, and I apologize that
Okay.
I have that.
All right. So say again, please, what we need to do for the next meeting.
Right now, I don't think anything. Besides take a look at the 7-year action plan. We do have the open space plan. It is on the city's website. And you can see the action plan there, but I'll try to have a spreadsheet just internally to members, just to, to get your feedback, but you guys would respond directly to me.
Okay.
And I'll try to edit that document. But it's basically sort of on the city's side to resubmit it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. It's not too groundbreaking, but
No, no, but
they did earlier in the process, they said they would like some aspect of public input. I was thinking, the comprehensive plan had a lot of people did speak on the importance of open spaces more. I mean, there's so many things that the public has spoken on. I know it's not specific to the open space plan, but there is a lot there to work with as well. We just went through the comprehensive plan process, and that was sort of received well by the consultant
I hope
team.
this doesn't sound too much like quibbling, but the public input, not necessarily about the idea of extending the term.
Mhm.
It's about the plan and its content. Right?
Yes.
So this committee is endorsing the idea, or I don't think we've done it formally, but of extending the term to 10 years, and the city is for that.
Mhm.
So that's not a question that the public is going to be asked, would ever be asked to weigh in on. It's a matter of, would there be
Any additions or
okay,
and so that was my question, is like, what does it mean to have a public hearing on this? And they were kind of like, it's not totally necessary. Nobody, but a chance nobody shows up to it, right?
I
So,
wonder if we just do a listening session,
hmm,
rather than, back and forth and Q&A and stuff like that. Just a listening session to see if somebody came up with an idea we hadn't thought of that really should be inserted,
right.
into this, this new one. So sometimes things can get out of hand, particularly with open space, if there's a lot of Q&A and, a process. Just a listening session where we don't comment, but we want to hear, what people have to say. I know that my mind and somebody else's mind are always, smarter together.
Right.
And I kind of like hearing from other people. They have some other ideas.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like, we could do that. It'd probably be an interim. It would have to be a meeting between now and our regular scheduled meeting.
is there a technical difference between a public hearing and a listening session? And because
You'd have to notice the public hearing.
a public hearing
We'd have-
requires 2 weeks' notice.
Yeah,
And I don't know, based on the way you described it, I'm not
I'm not sure either.
I'm not distinguishing. I mean, I get the idea of ideally a more casual setting, where sitting in beanbag chairs and you can just, put out some ideas.
Fireside chat.
Rather than being at a podium and sternly speaking
Yeah,
from
yeah.
notes, but,
I don't know.
yeah. So what do you all think?
the main thing to take away is it's due September 30th.
But what is due exactly? Like how much has to go into whatever happens or is submitted on September 30th? Is it just a matter of, an online form and there it goes, or is there some work that has to happen?
I think it's just the action plan, and it can be, I think it has to be, so we're working with MAPC, and I think they have that form that they will be the one submitting it, but it has to be the city that does it, if that makes sense. So they have access to whatever that form is that they would turn into the state. I haven't seen that, but I think it's kind of like what the action plan looks like. It's not as real, because like in the open space plan, there's a lot of detail. The open space inventory was done uh, it's full of detail. We're not doing that. It's just kind of, this is the action plan. They're inviting us to just
Mhm.
do it, to have it extend for another 3 years. It doesn't have to be too,
Is it possible to have people write in,
yeah,
like rather than having a live listening session? Just
yeah.
have something up where there's the link to the current action plan. So hopefully people could look at it and not repeat what's already there.
Mhm.
And just say, can you write in if you think there are additional things? Because there would have to be a bit of, if people did submit other things, somebody would have to look at the existing action plan, look at what they've said, and decide how to integrate those two. So that has to happen.
Right,
And it's those kinds of comments that we would want. And I think rather than, I mean, the question that they would be commenting on is how can the plan be adjusted or improved or in this extension? Uh, And rather than just willy-nilly,
Right.
all anything open space and recreation. So I think what you're suggesting would kind of focus the comments pretty well.
Yeah,
Rather
we'd
than
have
a-
the written
yeah.
things, we wouldn't,
Yeah.
I think that would be a good idea. I agree, it's always good to get some
Mhm.
public input, as long as it's manageable.
How do we get somebody to be Paul Revere to let people know that this is up there?
right. I mean, through the mayor's office, possibly
Could there be
like,
something like on the city website that says.
we could try. I'm not sure like the turnaround for that to happen since it's in like a month, with school starting and all of this stuff, but, we could do something like that. Like I don't even think it'd be like a list to a survey. It's just showing the action plan,
Right.
any additional comments on these, or do you have an open-ended piece?
You know, how
We
they have
just
the
have to
scroll
develop
up at the
that.
top that talks about undertows or trash strike.
Or the trash. Yes.
Yeah.
We've done that with the comprehensive plan too, a little.
Right, but if that's up there and said, that we want feedback through,
Hmm.
writing in or something,
Yeah,
at least, we've made an attempt at outreach.
It could even just
Right.
be an email address as opposed to an online form.
Yes.
Then it could literally just be the sentence.
Like open space 10-year plan,
It's being extended,
right?
here's a link to it. Let us know if you think anything should be
Yep.
changed, amended, added
Mhm.
by
Mhm.
September, whenever we next.
30th, or by,
No, it has to
yeah,
be before that.
the 23rd. So probably the few days before that.
Would it help if we express a preference and not say, yes, do it, but express a preference? And it sounds like you have a little bit of legwork to do to kind of figure out how to do it.
Mhm.
How does the city get written comment?
Right,
And, is there a minimum number of comment days, for example? Some organizations have like a 30-day or something, and if we have a 30-day comment period, probably can't do it.
mhm.
15, 20 may
Right.
work. So I'm just wondering about the kind of the practical side of things. If we just express it as a preference, is it something that you could then work with and
I could see what we can do
execute
with that.
if it can be executed, or inform us if it can't?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Should we motion towards that? Well, I don't want to dismiss what you were.
No, I think what you were saying is much more manageable.
Given the timeline.
Yeah.
sure.
Okay. Good. Right.
so like a comment period link on the website. Um, it would, yeah. And just wondering, yeah, that would be like I could talk to IT, whether there's like a fillable, you have the action plan where they can address comments, but it wouldn't be like, I wouldn't be like a living thing with everybody, because you don't want to like bias answers. It'd have to be like, I'm not sure.
And I'm wondering if Dan and you can come up with a format and put that in there, and it will just trust you as to, the format that's there.
Mhm.
Because we really don't have time to review, the format and stuff like that.
Right, I see, yeah. So that would be in your motion would just, we'd have to determine the language you're saying.
Right,
of what-
right, yeah.
Any additional comments or like,
Right,
is this
you,
good?
you,
or-
you and
right.
Dan, would
Okay.
just figure that out. You don't even have to meet. You can, just
Mhm.
send things back and forth digitally.
Yeah.
It seems like the first question is with the timing, can we even do this?
Yeah,
Because
right.
there's no point in talking to IT if we can't legally do it because there isn't enough
That's true.
time. That's first, IT second.
Well, I
Then
don't,
figure out
if
the
it's
wording.
not a public hearing,
A comment
a
period.
comment period, you
That
can,
has to be a certain amount of time.
right, you're right. I don't know off the top of my head. I haven't really done much with that.
It seems like it would be doable,
I think so too,
right? Because,
Right.
we're,
but I don't know. I'd have, it's probably a state law thing. Well, that I have to look at.
I'm not sure about that, but.
For a public comment period, yeah, I don't know.
Right.
So the preference of the committee, a motion such as the preference of the committee is to have a period for written comment on the extension of the open space and recreation plan. The extent that's practicable,
Yeah.
Right.
something like that.
I will make that motion.
Okay. There a second?
Second, Christmas.
All right. Okay. That is the motion. I'm not sure I can restate it, but is there any need for further discussion on it?
And for me.
All in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, very good. So Eric will do the kind of the technical legwork about the legality of it, and then I can work with how it presents to the public. Okay. Okay, very good, thank you. Just before we close that up, Dave, your idea of having some kind of hearing or listening session, maybe something that we could benefit from, and if we set the stage correctly and not try to also have a meeting, for example.
Right.
But I might think about doing it, talk about it in the new year.
Okay.
And maybe in advance of our April semi-annual report, we could do like a March public listening session.
Mhm.
And what people want us to care about, they care about.
Yeah.
Let's keep that in mind. I think it's hard to entertain comment at all of our meetings, and can get very messy.
Yes, I can.
And but let's see here might be a really good service to the community. Next one is also Eric, comprehensive plan implementation.
So there will be like a comprehensive plan implementation committee. It still hasn't been put together as of yet. This is right now sort of through the mayor's office. I haven't been too involved in those discussions. But there is an implementation matrix, like an action plan. With the comprehensive plan, there's a link to it. There's a lot of strategies, but there are like, which department should be kind of taking the reins on this and potential collaborations. And with that, I'm not even sure if it's going to be called the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee or what the name of it will be, but that's sort of the idea, is that they'd be able to track these the goals of the comp plan and work towards, as much as possible getting those goals and strategies accomplished.
Sorry, there's going to be a new committee or there is a committee?
It's in the process of being developed. So it will be a new committee.
With the older plan in 2000 or
Yeah.
2001, depending on what you looked at, there was a plan implementation review committee, and they met quite frequently, and they would call different departments to task if they weren't actually doing certain things. And it was kind of a wake-up call sometimes. Other times it was just so busy that you didn't have a chance to do that. But at least at first, I think it was fairly effective. And it changed priorities for some departments at certain times. And that's where it's important. Is, you know, it's easy to, as, you know, a past superintendent schools once told me, you're so busy, you know, dealing with the critical, that you don't have time to deal with the important.
Sure.
And so this helps you, you know, adjust your priorities a little bit.
Yes.
And outside of that, you know, housing, you know, was obviously a prominent issue, and there is now like a housing compass team that's been put together. I think their next meeting is late September. But housing is such a difficult issue, so it's really a cross section of a lot of different people. So things like that are popping up where there's opportunities for grants that. So housing compass came from I think it's an MAPC grant to do like a comprehensive housing needs assessment again. The last one was done in 2017. That's a long time ago now. Like, you know, costs have really escalated since then. Like, if anything, 2017 was easy. It wasn't easy at all. So, that's sort of what that plan can do, is it focuses like the priorities and where to go from there. So that's just one occurrence. I think there's another, I forget what it is. So, but there's some other, maybe it's like a resiliency grant that we're going for because of that process as well. But the implementation committee, again, I don't think that will be the name of it, but just sort of like a comprehensive plan review committee. So, yeah.
So I shared excerpts that I thought were from the comprehensive plan that I thought were related to our. So we're, I guess we'll stand by and see how the implementation committee gets formed and to what extent, I mean, and how they function, and to what extent it would be in interest of open space to engage with that committee of some kind of communication conduit. Any questions for Eric on this topic? Right. So next item, access and signage at open space properties and trailheads. Chris and Tomra have put a lot of work. Dave, I know, has put in some skills work into a inventory or a descriptive inventory of space places, open spaces where great start to this project. To the project description, you need to know what we're looking at. So, how's it going?
Well, that was going to be my first question to you. First of all, let me say that Tomra has not had a lot of time to put into this, so and I try to say we, whenever possible, but a lot of stuff I've been having to sort of do, which I'm not complaining about, but just let you know if I misspeak. And she did a nice spreadsheet outline at the early time, which I think will be useful at some point. So I guess my first question, I've got like three, you know, sort of basic things, is what we have done so far, and I'm especially thinking of the narratives that is that what we have had in mind? Is that on the right track? Is that good stuff? I'm not saying is it finished, is it done, anything like that. I'm just saying, is that kind of narrative approach to these individual places and the dividing up, as you saw, I've divided them up into subgroups of sort of forested trails, city parks, beaches, and athletic fields, because those all seem to have different needs and different approaches. They're quite different kinds of places. So are we on the right track here in general?
I like the narrative
Express that.
because it shows the qualitative aspect of it, which
Yes.
we don't normally have. I think it should be clear, however, that this qualitative is a snapshot in time.
Oh, definitely,
Right.
yes.
And there should be but I really think it's nice to have that, just like VRBO has, reviews, we could have, reviews on our open space.
Yeah.
And things like this. And essentially, that's what it looks like as a snapshot in time. And I think I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, well, I was just about to say that one of the things that actually surprised me about this, I volunteered for this thinking, oh, do my bit. And it's actually became quite interested.
Yeah, nice.
I've lived here for a long time, thought I knew everything about it, basically.
Well, we thought you knew everything about it.
Yeah. Well, and I poked into some unusual places, whatever, and was interested to find that, oh, whoa, who knew, everything. And that in a given entity, there are details that kind of emerge. So that's the kind of thing that I thought, not only for my own interest, but for the narrative. And that if we do, which is another question I have coming up here, if we do decide to publish this in some form, I can imagine it being just very dull, at one level, so that having a narrative form
Right.
that says, oh, hey, this is your community and go check some of these places out, basically,
Yeah,
without
yeah.
saying that. So, yeah. So I'm taking that we're not wildly off base here, that, whatever. The other thing, which follows very much.
So can I just?
But by all means, but
No, I kind of think of it, I mean, I learned a lot through reading it about spaces I didn't know much about at all. But I sort of see it as kind of one piece of maybe a kind of a larger perspective.
Mhm.
Like I could imagine now having read through it, kind of synthesizing some of the needs. Right,
yes,
and so it could even eventually have a kind of I don't know, an executive summary or something at the beginning that's like, here's all of these individual properties and details. But here are some things we see across the board, like
signage, for
either
example.
not enough or too much or outdated or
Yes.
poorly done, et cetera. And so that someone who wants to read the narrative can, but someone who doesn't
Right,
can
yeah.
still get something out of.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. No, I'm totally in
I could-
line with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm
So
sorry, go ahead. I
that,
just
so
wanted
that,
to-
again, there were, yes, a number of different things. The signage kind of comes to mind,
Yeah.
but there are other
Other
things.
things too.
The, what's the word, sort of landscape aspects of athletic fields, some of which are in amazing shape, and others are like, and a lot of that has to do with economics, what in a particular neighborhood they're in and things like that. But that is a category. That's another example of a category, et cetera.
So Dave's idea, the VRBO listing is kind of a good one for I like the narratives. I think they're really nice. And maybe this is coming, but in terms of making the properties accessible and helping users of the property, I think some tabular information would be also helpful. Parking for approximately four spaces
Okay.
just off the road, or parking, around the corner,
Yep.
one spot or none.
Yep.
ADA, is it I don't know how much information but what would a person need to use it? And when I think about how we present it, whether it's a sign or a map where you hover over a property and you get a little text box that, so it could have the narrative, but also, opening hours or rules or local only or whatever, whatever the details are, so that someone could know how to use the space.
I think that Essex County Greenbelt, their website is a great template for that, because for each property, they have a little narrative description that might include a little bit of the natural history,
Yeah.
how it came to be conserved.
Yeah.
But then they have that very straightforward information
Yeah.
about like, well, what can you do here? What-
45
can you do
acres,
everything
8
everywhere?
miles of trails.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like,
No,
can
that's
you
not
do
the same. Yeah.
snowboarding? Can you do, so just a very bullet pointy list of amenities,
Yeah.
parking, what you can do, so that someone could look at it and plan based on the information there,
Yeah.
in combination with the more interesting narrative, and have it all in one place.
Yep, and that, as you're all aware, that adds a fairly large dimension to the project and a very left-brained one, if I'm saying so. In terms of,
Yeah.
and while I'm looking forward to spending more time in these places, I'm not necessarily looking forward to going out and counting parking spaces, but I think I get it.
Yeah.
And so I guess it depends on, and that gets to another point I have is that, we seem to be headed towards producing some kind of a document, whether it's a booklet, whether it's an online thing, whether it's both, all of those kinds of things. And so I think, yeah, I can imagine a subcommittee or something, somebody
Yeah.
to go and do some of those sort of basic things.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the, I mean, these are, with all due respect to them, with aside from the wooded properties with trails, most of them don't have a lot of sort of green belt level. What can you do here?
Yeah.
You know, you can play basketball, you can use the landing, you can, you know, so, but,
Yeah.
and that's not whatever. The other thing, well, let's see. Oh, I just wanted just a reminder that if both the Daves contributed significantly to the information on this. And any of you who know a particular place and want to add stuff to it or think, I mean, there was a couple that Dave Morrow had, there was one thing that Dave Morrow had about Gray Beach that I just overlooked, and it was a whole section of things.
Right.
So that's very valuable. And a lot of these things, you go into a place like there are two of these ye old town landings. There's the one at Gray Beach and there's the one at the Little River. And when you go to, and that's Stubby Knowles thing, and you go there and it's a nice space. It's got some good parking. There's various kinds of signage, including a nice diagram of the site, which is not duplicated anyplace else. But then you have to kind of look, and there's a rock, and it has carvings of, you know, that say, talk about Stubby and, you know, who he was and all of that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of things like that. And, you know, we're all familiar with different things, you know, so, you know, if anything comes to mind, don't hesitate. That's the message there, kind of stuff.
Okay. So it is a big project. It,
I'm not trying to duck it. I'm just.
no, but it doesn't have to all be presented at once.
Yeah.
Yes,
In
yes.
print form, it would.
Yes, yes.
It has to be completed before you go to print, but one of the great things of the internet is you could do as, you know, as much as you can and just, you know, upload the ones when when they're ready. And so also several months ago, when we were touching on the subject, I shared some documents from Mass CCM, and they have a GIS, but a map presentation where you hover and it gives you some kind of pop-up of coastal properties. And there was a book a long time ago that they published, and it was all of the coastal access from Newburyport through Boston. And it's these little short, like 5-mile sections of the coastline, detailed maps. It was a print book, and it was really good. I was doing a lot of paddling back then, and you could just go, you know, look at the map. You'd see the little symbol. You turn the page, and it would say 2 parking places, boat ramp, you know, or whatever the thing was, or public dock, and it just had just the essentials so that you could be a user of that.
And that would, some of these sites would be in that.
Yes, they would, but I'm mentioning it as a
Yeah, template.
as a template.
Yeah.
But yes,
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
and I could try to dredge up those links if they're of interest.
No, I think, I mean, there are some places like, well, I guess I was thinking, okay, fine, there's a place that has limited parking and you can figure out 5 parking spaces. Good Harbor Beach, different situation, but that gets described in a different.
Yes.
Yeah. So my final point is, those of you who read the presentation, I was fairly frank in some cases in describing needs and problems. And some of them are, in my view, pretty serious, at least if we're trying to look at the city as a place that people want to go, not just to go to the beach and stuff, which is obviously fine, and do other things, but that to me, when you arrive at some of these places, it's like, oh, yuck, you know, I mean, it's just a mess. It's a mess of signage, too many signs, many of them duplicative. A lot of them kind of sloppy or old or what, you know, on and on and on like that. And so I guess the question is kind of, well, do we want to, again, make a point of that and move in the direction of correcting some of those things? You know, I mean, I gave the example of Plum Cove Beach. There's the little parking lot on the side, not the one across the street. And that's where you enter the beach at one point. There are 12 signs there, you know, and about, you know, a third of them are duplicates of other things, you know. Please keep your dogs on a leash. Please keep clean up after your dog. No dogs allowed, you know, I mean, it's like that kind of thing. And it's just, it makes it very clear that nobody's in charge, basically, that there's no signage person that says, no, I'm sorry, this won't do. Here's the basic signage template for the city of Gloucester. You know, you could go as far to call out the font and everything else so that it's like, oh, okay. And here are all the things you should or shouldn't do at this site, kind of thing. I don't know whether we want to be in that business, but my take is the city could look a lot better in a lot of places. You know? Yeah. I mean, Good Harbor is another example. 5 different access points to the beach, each one with its own massive signs saying all kinds of things, including people's messages and watercolors and things like that. So, you know, that's nice in a way, but you know.
One that I'm surprised you didn't call out on the Governor's Park. The sign, it's the name of the park is misspelled on the sign.
Oh, yes. I did notice that. I should have called that out. Yes, yes. Yeah, well, yeah.
But they're, you know, they're artifacts of our history and kind of the communities at different times championing you know, their particular.
And I know
place.
there's one approach that says, well, that's the way it is. Gloucester's kind of funky and a bit messy and hey, live with it. I'm open to that.
Yeah.
A morass of signs is not really helpful either, right?
Yeah.
So Eric, doesn't the LRRP have a wayfinding and signage project in it?
Yeah,
And that was, I understood, being funded. So this was the local response and recovery plan, kind of coming out of
after
COVID.
COVID, yeah.
And there was some money pinned to it.
Yeah, that's still ongoing, and I think it kind of has narrowed down to more of like downtown Gloucester and gateway areas. So, you know, the 133, 127 intersection, there should be something there. I mean, that's for like traffic, but also just for directing people walking on the boulevard, right, where to go and the placement of those. But I think the placement can get controversial when you're near those, you know, statues, et cetera. But that's mostly of like a downtown wayfinding. There was this project done with the SUFAs that they weren't really that helpful. And then sometimes not that they weren't helpful, but one time it froze and like it was just the same. You know, you just have to maintain it with the digital screen. They had digital screens. People thought it was like the parking kiosk. It was confusing folks. You know, so I think they were all removed. That was during the 400th.
Yeah, so what department is?
That's ComDev.
ComDev, okay.
Yeah.
So it's ComDev is doing that, so it might be as this.
And DPW advises on it too.
Correct, but as this project moves ahead and the Open Space Committee maintains its traction and we gather this information, at some point we can bring it to ComDev and say, what do you want to do? You know, and you could describe different scales of re-signage
Right.
projects. And we're going to do the first 50 on this list.
Yeah, that would be, I think, that's where you'd want to direct it. You know, obviously it would be in consultation with DPW. They have, you know, a signage machine, prints a
It's still-
uniform.
but it
kind
still
of
takes money.
signage, but that takes money.
Yeah. So ultimately, you know, who who is responsible for the look and feel? This question of the look and feel of the signs and how
Is
this,
there an
how this,
ordinance, for
how the
example,
city.
that if you want to put up a sign that at some beach that says no horses allowed, you have to go to someone to get an okay for that?
You do, I believe it is,
It would have to be in the beach management plan that
Yeah.
was approved by the DEP. With beaches in particular, it's tighter than say it is, at other places. If it's going to be on the beach itself, if it's on the street, what you're really doing is you're answering the constituents' concerns or the ward council's concern. Yes, I'll put a sign up for you.
Right.
It's so that's totally different
That's-
animal.
that's-
Yeah,
Right.
and that's
Some of
where
it's
the problems
legislative
are,
too,
basically.
right.
It's not on the beaches for the
Right,
most
yeah.
part, yeah.
and like, like no parking, for instance, that's all,
Yeah.
that's through ward councilors, that's all the city council.
Right.
That gets in the ordinance of where you can park, and I think there's some of that with where you can put signs, but in terms of like replenishing, what we're saying is, we're trying to draw attention. We want like a landing spot, I think, is an ultimate goal on the website to, you can look up these places, click on them, and you get this history, activities, what to do. Just be kind of more a public service. Public, is that the right word? Like just customer service oriented for these things, right? For signage on that, I think I'll have to research where that would go to, but I mean, definitely bring it to ComDev. It is a community development.
Yeah. I'm thinking, for example, you could have a request or a, suggestion that's saying, in this place or just in general, there are 3 things that involve dogs and other pets. We don't need 4 or 5 signs about that. Here's a template to cover
Right.
all those issues
Yeah,
and to have some entity accept that. So if that were the case, the city entity accepting that, you could then would have the authority presumably to go and say, okay, here's the dog sign.
right.
I mean, if there were Parks and Recreation Department.
Yes. Right. That's it. So it is so for example, around the watershed, there are signs and it's a clear dog. It's like a cross out of a dog, doing its business. And with the enacting ordinance there, that can be uniform anywhere, not just dogs, it's pets, right? But
Yep.
specific to dogs. There you go.
Yeah.
Wherever the entry point is to Good Harbor, I know that'd be a lot. Of course, you don't want 15 signs like Plum Cove, but that's a uniform place you can
Yeah,
do.
and Good Harbor has like 2 or more signs about dogs at each place,
right.
so and that's probably accepted.
Yeah, it is something, we know about. There's a hodge. That's the reason that wayfinding projects came about. Like even downtown, there's like the Preserve America signs, and there's also the Arrow place. I mean, there's so many different kinds, and it's, you want something more like, anyway, it's something that the city has been thinking about for some time. So how I can find out like what is the way to do it, but I do think it is bringing it to ComDev and,
It's endemic anyway,
With what?
in government putting up signs.
yeah,
Our Purple Heart Highway, the extension, Route 128, Route 95, America's Technology Highway.
Right.
Different signs for the same place. If you're a tourist, you're confused as all the heck. Where the heck am I?
Yes,
So, it's
but you're not
endemic.
gonna be good at taking down a veterans honor sign, so,
No, right,
rock and hard place.
right. Or if you're answering public concerns, you may not want to take down the dog fouling signs either. But maybe there's a reason why there's number 2 of them.
So, with that, I think this,
Doesn't solve the problem at all, guys.
so our task is about access, and informing the public and providing access. And this compilation of information does that. And then I think it's a separate question, and an equally difficult question to kind of figure out the signage and whether the city wants to take on kind of all that, you know, because we can do the work to create. Tomer had was creating a spreadsheet.
Right.
And the spreadsheet would lend itself very well. You put the narrative in, you know, in column A, and column B could be, you know, type, acreage, you know, and so on, and parking and usage, and you know, those sorts of things. And if we can just compile that table, that someone smart with computers can then scrape that all off the table and present it on a map format and have it come up. And it would eventually serve a signage project, even if it's just a QR code at the properties. But you know, the basic question and the basic task is compiling all that information, which is a big project, but also I think a great service to the community.
Do you think, sometimes I just feel like we file information upon information upon information. And I just looked up, you know, public, what did I look up? Just Googled impact of lack of signage on access to public open spaces. And there's research, right? So here's this research article, you know, highlights wayfinding is perceived to increase confidence, perceived safety, and reduce anxiety. Wayfinding signage should not impede on the natural environment. Oh, so like there's research out there that kind of tells us what this kind of signage does or does not do. I kind of feel like
How much you need kind of thing, or. you know,
maybe, I mean, I don't know. This
Yeah.
is like, you know, I just spent 30 seconds and I've got a research article here that's relevant. So
Yeah.
sometimes I just feel like we're just, you know, stacking facts and
Okay.
that everybody already knows. But nothing's
Yeah.
actually
'Cause-
happening.
Right.
So maybe I can do some research and maybe we can find some relevant.
Well, it
you
also
know,
needs a local sign guru to implement too. I mean, the best laid plans, which may be laid out there,
Mhm.
you need somebody to go, I mean, I keep thinking, oh, if we had a sign guru, right, you go around to these different places and say, well, that sign clearly must go. Right. It goes,
Hmm.
kind of thing, you know, or we need a way finding sign here to make sure people know how to, you know, that kind of thing. But I don't think that entity exists, at least at present. So it's kind of up to us to figure out.
It's like sort of everybody knows there's a problem, but nobody really knows what to,
Well, yeah, there's a lot of pieces
exactly
to
what
it.
to
Yeah.
do about it.
Yeah.
I think it's important for us to highlight that there is a problem.
Right.
Yes.
So maybe that's all we can do at this point, but it shouldn't stop us from highlighting.
No, well, I've tried to do that to some extent in the narrative.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There's a few things at the end there that maybe we'll talk about at the end of the meeting about, you said should certain things be included, you know, in the area, and I have some thoughts and
About
things,
that, sure.
and maybe we'll do that at the end of the meeting. Not to take up other, unless you want to talk about it now.
Well, it's under this agenda item?
Yeah.
Then we should talk about it
Oh,
now.
okay.
Okay.
You said potentially should certain things be put on the list there, and you had Long Wharf, and that,
Oh, okay, those, yeah.
yeah, and that's a state public landing, and people shouldn't be gathering there because it's against regulations.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be swimming, you shouldn't be picnicking, you shouldn't be loitering or anything else like that. And it's been an issue with Long Wharf, you know, and right now it's sort of a detente on people gathering there and stuff. And in the past, it was, you know, loggerheads and stuff. So we should be encouraging people to be there and do that. You talked about potentially Blooming Canal path, and I'm totally in favor of that because how you presented things was potentially what could be done additionally to that. At the end of the of Dunfledged Landing, and people don't know this, the city poor farm was there. And when they sold that to DMF and then they sold that Mighty Mac, which is now Pathways, they retained a 15-foot path, including the pier. And this is it right here.
Yeah,
So
no,
you-
I'm familiar with it but there's no signage. I mean, that's great information. That's great.
But in the future, that could be improved,
Yes.
right?
Definitely.
And I have a pit, and the signage could be also, what happened before, about the canal itself, as well as Newell Stadium. And this is, picture of, this was Centennial Avenue.
Yep.
And this is the wetland, the marsh,
Yes,
all
no,
the way
in this.
before it was the city dump. And there could be all of that information
Oh,
in there
yeah.
as well. And I think that would be a great addition to, your.
Good. It wasn't clear to me that it was protected and that it was parkland per se. But yeah,
I have the deeds if you want to look at
No,
those,
I-
right? And then you were talking about, Troy Hill Drive that the city owns.
oh, yes.
Yeah, and the city does own that, and the neighborhood does walk up and through that, so that could also be included.
Okay, that one, we have a good friend who lives on Tree Hill Drive, and so we were parking, remotely from his place, and I just noticed these two trails that I'd never noticed before.
Right.
It wasn't clear to me where they went anywhere.
They don't.
They don't, they just, yeah, but it is open space that's.
But the neighborhood,
Yeah.
the neighborhood enjoys it, yeah.
Great. Right. No, that's good. That's good. So, now, when you're talking about Long Wharf,
Right.
you're talking about,
Jones River.
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
On the Winger Shake.
Yes, yeah, and so, because that is open for like clammers and stuff, is it not?
Well, clammers clam on the nearby flats, and then they park their vehicles so that they can launch the boats,
Right,
because it's a public landing,
right,
right?
and the signage indicates that it's a public landing.
Yes, there were 3 public landings that were financed at the same time with money from the state. There was Long Wharf,
Yep.
There was Corliss Landing and Lanes Cove.
Okay.
And so those are technically state public landings.
Okay,
And so they have to come under state CMRs.
Okay.
And there's certain things that are forbidden, in state. And Dunfudgeon, for example, are all state public landings, and they're governed by state regulations. And we have public landings, that are city public landings, and it's a lot looser. But state public landings have to abide by CMRs technically.
right. The signage at Long Wharf gives the impression that the public is welcome, so that may be an issue.
Well, the signage that was recently put up tries to talk about the restrictions.
Okay.
The signage that talks about Jones River Salt Marsh I put up, and that sort of says that the public's welcome.
Nice.
If you want, you can have it.
Oh, yes, no, if you could spell that, that's perfect. Yeah.
And if you want more information,
Thank you so
I
much.
have it.
Well, anything else on this topic? Good. Looking forward to seeing that progress. Upgrading Gloucester's sports fields. This has not progressed. Our first task, well, Adrian has had an extraordinary summer, and so much communication with her. But our first task was to get a full list of all the sports leagues. Seems like a pretty simple task, but it's not. And the folks that we're relying on to get that are swamped with some other matters. For example, the rubbish and recycling stuff. It's a small team, and they haven't been able to compile the information for us. And that's sort of the first step, because we want to get a list of all the known leagues and their coordinators or chairs and what have you, and try to, through that, get an inventory of all the needs for field time. And you start mapping it out to see where they play.
No disrespect to Adrienne, but isn't that a spreadsheet? I mean, it doesn't sound like.
We don't have a list of all the leagues, but
Isn't that pretty easily gettable?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't know how to get it. I don't, and this is related, well, it is adjacent to the issue of not knowing the schedules and not having access to the schedules for the fields. I still don't know why all that information is sort of close hold.
I know that I can see the schedules thing being messy, but it seems like the leagues, somebody ought to
We should
I think
find
there's a
it.
bunch of different leagues though,
Yeah.
right? And she's involved in one and
And
but that's
this-
just one league and
Yeah.
one sport with one kid, so I think.
And schools also have like
Yeah.
priority access to some of the fields.
So we haven't moved on that, and I'm sorry to say. OSC semi-annual report, I'm going to upgrade or update the April report and circulate it a couple weeks before the next meeting, and then we'll perfect it at that meeting. But if there are topics that like addressed, I don't have the April one in front of us, so we can't really look at it, but yell at me. Right, which brings us to emerging issues, other business, and open discussion among members. We have a lot of open discussion. Eric, you'd mentioned there was, to me earlier today, there was some breaking news on, oh no, we covered that. It was East Gloucester open space, but it was just that it was coming up in the CPC. So we covered that. Any other big news?
I don't have big news, but I have a question. In the June minutes, the discussion with Dogtown and the survey, there were a few things that you indicated there would be more info next month, which was
Yeah.
last month, but that got swallowed up by pickleball. So I'm wondering if there's an update on the Dogtown
Yeah,
survey.
no, the one, right, so
Not breaking news.
there have been many, there has been a response, there's surveyors interested.
Mhm.
We don't know how much it costs yet. I think the last I heard from Mike is, the fall is a more ideal time for this because there's not like trees interfering and like survey sight lines and things like this. So I think that's sort of his goal, is to try to have something wrapped up and there's less like vegetation around. That's sort of my last hearing about it. So
RFP, should really be going out, not when the foliage is off the trees.
like
but
before,
The foliage is off the trees.
so
So then when
I-
the foliage is
yeah.
off the trees, they can do the work.
Right. So I'm not sure where it stands, but there were, and also he got hit.
Right.
With this, the trash and everything, but it is. I'll reach out and
You had indicated at some point that there was actually some
there were.
enthusiasm and positiveness, and it would be a shame to lose that because we know
Right.
how easily that can happen and whatever. And this is gonna require some push
Yeah,
by
I can-
one or more people,
Right. It's a priority of ours. I'm saying like community development, so, and we know it's a priority for this committee, so I'll
Well,
try
and-
to double
and
back and see what's
Mike was
going on.
expressing great interest
Yeah.
and support of the topic, but I really think they've been consumed by the rubbish strike, and
I think they
But
can
it-
still put out an RFP,
Mhm.
because
I don't know how hard that is.
through purchasing, or just, put that out there. And it doesn't have to be granted, and the money doesn't have to be there. The response that you get, can really tell you, what you are looking at. I mean, if it's, more money than the upgrade of the sewer plant, then obviously it isn't gonna happen.
Right, right.
But, doing
Gosh.
nothing, I don't think is an answer.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing.
But is that the plan to put out an RFP? And if so, who's gonna do that?
So an RFP, they can do it internally.
Okay.
They don't really need to do. There's an exemption that you don't have to like put it out to bid.
Right.
You're saying an RFP just to see who.
You
which
can do a
surveyors-
request for.
So I think that's been happening. It's
I
because he's
haven't-
gotten
I-
people responding.
I haven't seen that under, purchasing, and normally that's where that would be, noticed on the
The
state website,
notices in there, okay.
if there's an RFP.
Huh. Yeah,
Um,
I like by next meeting, I know I'm saying like the next meeting and then the next meeting, but I do think I can have this fleshed out in better detail by September.
Okay.
Hopefully something's wrapped up. Or then, I don't know, but ComDev hasn't really been, we haven't been doing the solicitation or anything. It's been, and I'm not, it is being worked on by DPW because it is a priority to try to do these consolidations and,
But what exactly is being worked on by DPW? I'm
to
just trying to
get a
understand, like,
surveyor.
who has to do what.
Because it's so complex, there's a lot of plots and, you know, the lot lines,
Oh, I know
so
that.
all of this, and then the background research of
Right.
everything, that's sort of it. So it's a team of surveyors. You need more than just one guy, like Poles Hill was easy, because it was laid out, lotted out. This is gonna be, you're gonna have to have teams of
Right.
survey. We don't know how
The
many that would be.
DPW is tasked with figuring out who to hire?
Yes, which surveyor to hire.
Okay,
And which would also probably need some kind of land use lawyers or, and that's not the right term, but deed researchers. Like ones that have better access than even the public has with the Salem Registry of Deeds, like. Even though I think anybody has it, but they are more specialized in really digging into like
Mhm.
these ancient deeds, because
Mhm.
that's what's gonna be there. Because it has to be like, if you're doing a lot consolidation like this, it really has to be 100%, right? You want to get it done and not run into any issues. So
Right. In the past, we talked about, not trying to hit the home run, but maybe doing some fun singles. So, you know, the idea was to maybe make it small, like watershed lands. You know, just combine all of those lots that are in watershed protection things, you know, under one lot. And it would be that much easier to get that
Right.
done. And I agree that technically ComDev could put out an RFP, but it's much better if DPW does that, because there are procurement things, you know, that they're able to do much better,
right,
more easily and much more frequently, you know, than ComDev is. But again, you know, we were talking about just with watershed parcels initially, is my understanding. And then we were gonna
right.
looking beyond that, right?
I
Yeah.
think so the watershed parcels, those are, I mean, for right now, nothing's gonna happen there. In terms of development pressure or anything like that, they're like, you know, the Babson deed
You're
is.
cropping out.
But like the wood lots is where we're kind of, I
Well,
thought
that's a
like
good
our
future, right?
focus would
But
be.
what we talked about now to do with delineation was we were talking about, you know, doing the watershed properties, and then eventually, you know, looking
With
at the woodlot.
conservation restriction stuff, not just, oh, it's watershed land, that's protected.
Right, but that was gonna be under one, you know, perimeter deed, the watershed properties, was my understanding.
I think so. I think it was I'm gonna pull up the GIS.
I have it right here.
You have it, or
So
I
the
just
last
wanna,
thing we discussed was
yeah,
consolidating the lower parts, the
Right,
woodlots,
right.
the Article 97 land, basically the already owned by the city land.
Yeah, that's it, yeah,
That's what we
right,
talked about.
right, yes.
Is that what this survey is meant to be looking at, or are they doing the entirety of Dogtown? which
not
would
the
take forever?
entirety, no, they're doing just the wood lots.
Okay,
To
excellent.
start,
Or just the city-owned property.
the city-owned properties,
And then there are a few of those woodlots that are
this,
Yeah.
mysterious.
these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, those guys.
That's why it's a complex project.
Right, but that's why we also wanted to make
To do
some
the
easy
fun single, so
progress,
like
but-
just,
Right,
I think I mean, one of the issues was the compost pile with these guys to get this to be one. You know, these were from a taking. I don't know, maybe it was the 80s around the Dogtown Road, so we did discuss like possibly getting this into one
Yes.
individual parcel.
Yeah.
That would
The
still
woodlots,
take that time, but these ones, I was
they're
thinking,
not bonkers crazy. There's like a handful of them. And there are some records, because even I found some.
right,
So I mean, that,
but how they could be off though.
but it's
like-
not as bonkers crazy as the rest of Dogtown.
Right, but you still have like some unknowns here and like, there are people that own some of the
Yes.
stuff internally, so that's why it is
Right, but don't include those in it, because that.
this is what we're trying to, this is what we're going for.
What you're allowing is speed bumps to become roadblocks.
Right. I
And,
see.
and I'm suggesting you not do that.
This is what we're doing. I thought this was what, we made the motion to do this.
To look at all the unknowns.
To do these woodlots, to focus the survey on
in that
these.
southern section.
It's not what we,
No, my understanding.
that's not what we.
No, we talked
My
about
understanding
the
is we're
already
going to
city.
look at the
owned
ones where we knew the titles and then do a parental deed around those. Because we realized that research into historical things,
And
is
especially
a roadblock.
these little road,
Oh,
you know,
boy.
are definitely roadblocks. And if we could, consolidate, what we're calling the watershed land, these larger lots, then we could say, well, look, we've already, protected this, whatever. Now we've got to tackle,
Is it
next
from,
step.
right,
And if it comes down to the fact that the only things we haven't protected are those woodlotty things, then that puts the pressure on to get them done.
Work on them one by one, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
hmm.
I don't know, I think Eric wants to work on those woodlots.
Yeah, well, because the idea was like, if, yeah, I thought that was, why am I so like puzzled by this?
Mission drift.
Cause, cause this is like, all of these are individually assessed. If you have a good, larger survey team, that can do the benefit of getting this under one lot consolidation is vast.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't think we disagree with that. Right?
And so that, and with these, because this is watershed, this is all of these are Article 97 lands. They're not really going anywhere. I know that there's like, right, but here, where's this, the protection layer, sorry.
I don't think you could effectively ask for an RFP. If the process of finding out the property, who the ownership is so open-ended. Nobody's really going to be bidding on that. That would have, generally, my sense is that would have to be grant funded or something else like that, to start the process. But nobody's going to respond to an RFP to do survey on properties that they don't know. If we're ever going to be able to figure out the ownership or the delineations of it. But we have delineations for the city-owned properties or proximities to what the boundaries are of those. And that's going to be difficult enough because some of those are historical as well. But at least you don't have to go through the legal process and figure out who the owner is. Because figuring out who the owner is
These owners.
onerous.
The other side of the coin of, spending money to capture that lower section and not do anything is that you're spending your first big pile of money on this less threatened second segment.
I don't think it's the
And
most,
so you're having to find another pot of money for the rest.
I don't think it's, I think this will be the least costly, actually. I think the others will be much more costly.
Yes, and that's kind of my point, applying the money to the more critical and more costly section rather than reducing the possibility of buying that later.
Right.
Well, if you were doing that, I sort of suggested if you're not going to be doing a perimeter deed, that you look at the perimeter of what you call Dogtown, and then you see if you can get conservation restrictions for that, and that was the alternative way of doing that. And try to get meaningful conservation restrictions. There's some loopholes in that, potentially with what they call, you have a right of way by necessity for properties that were part of a subdivision or something. And, you have a conservation restriction. Even the guy, if you're landlocked, you have a right still to access that property. But if you do have conservation restrictions on what we consider Dogtown in what we feel like is a perimeter, environmentally as well as threatened by development. That would be, what I was sort of suggesting as our, object two, when we were looking at, this year's action plan. And so that would be separate from, the delineation. And I think that would be worthwhile looking at that as well, because you don't have to really fund that as much. If there has to be some outreach, to property owners and things like that, get meaningful conservation restrictions in. And you pretty much outlined, part of Dogtown and the areas there. So have a dozen properties or, yeah, something like that. So that could be a opportunity to move in that direction.
All in favor?
Sorry.
Should we have this as an agenda item again in September? and
Yes.
Kind of
Yeah.
revisit it
Yeah,
because so this seems a little murky in our memory. I definitely remember discussing
Yes.
how easy it would be to consolidate and conserve
Yes.
the city-owned Article 97 land. That
Yes.
was a good idea.
That would be a great.
I also remember talking about the woodlots as a chunk.
yeah.
So I think we're all right.
Yeah,
Because the idea for this was again, focusing this a professional, survey team. It's too hard. What am I trying, this is really crazy for like the city to try to tap. We do need that outside assistance.
yes.
We want to know the status of the unknowns. We want to know, and if these can, it is a long-term project, but then if this can get to a consolidated state, that's where you do, the Article 97 here, and then it can, I don't know, I'm not
But
sure.
I think we're talking about conservation, not
Yeah.
Article 97.
Right,
because
right,
Article
the
97
CR.
Can be on
This would be
top.
the CR.
I'm picturing this as a map, okay?
Yeah.
And the wonderful glorious map,
All of it
or
would
the
be a
sub-map
CR,
we're looking
yeah.
for is that we have the Dogtown perimeter and we have these larger lots all filled in and we've got conservation restrictions on all of them. So here's Dogtown, all it's in yellow or green or whatever you say, has now been protected. The last piece is this chunk in the middle of these woodlots. So we're trying to raise some money, guys, to just, and then we finish it and that's it. That's the big, thing. I think there's just tremendous PR value in picturing this and the idea that Dogtown is not protected and we can protect it and it's really important, kind of stuff. And I think that's a message.
CR protection. So, okay, quickly. That's these two big, the Babson deed,
Mhm.
this. The compost pile is obviously a big
Thing.
thing,
Yeah.
that there's not much enthusiasm right now to
Yeah, well,
touch.
that's,
But these plots, that's not Lehman, okay. That's a sportsman yard. No, that's us. Okay, so it's these chunks that we did take. Consolidating these,
Right.
yep, you got it.
start there,
Right.
bam. I don't know what watershed and CRs, that's something to research, like what that means.
And then there are lots to the north.
But Lynn Woods is a watershed and they did a massive conservation restriction. So then with these big plots, I think what it was we know that this can be consolidated. That won't be a hard lift.
That's right.
Right.
This is the hard lift, so that's why we wanted to go for putting it out for a survey team research.
But why
Cause it
wait?
was so hard for us to get at some of that information.
But why wait on the easy lift?
Yeah, right, yeah. Because even the easy things, sometimes,
Cause that has the more big value
well,
of.
I know you try to
what
hit
we
home
did.
run, but,
Right.
but how about a bunt single?
Huh. All right. Wow, this is, I I did, do you guys remember me talking about the woodlots, so, right? Like that was the.
We talked about the
But we
woodlots for
talked about both. We
forever.
talked about
Oh, yeah.
consolidating we
But
talked
not to
about the
go-
easy thing first.
Okay,
And it'd be lovely to do it all at the same time, but if it's looking like the woodlots are gonna be arduous,
Yes.
then have it
Arduous,
be
expensive, all
a
of that.
two-stage process where
Hmm.
we do the easy thing first. It shows good faith on the part of the city. It protects a large portion of Dogtown in perpetuity. Article 97 land is not 100% secure. It's not 100% protected.
but you'd have to
And it's
replace the
visually very-
entirety of it
Compelling.
when you, if you do like sell. Or whatever happens with the, like, you'd have to replace that whole, these are big chunks that. If you do the Article 97 land swap, like, there's not much area in Gloucester that matches.
No, but we would conserve it.
This, right, yeah,
It's a
what I'm saying is
conservation
like the
restriction.
threat stuff. And I think because these are so. These are
Right.
they are relatively secure, so
So
these
they
aren't
become-
going anywhere.
They're big enough that there's no room in the,
In
on
Gloucester
the
to-
island for
Right.
compensation. for
And
the- for the-
these are watershed
Oh, I
lands
see what you're
actively
saying.
used,
I
we're
think that's
not,
what
these aren't
I
getting
see.
touched. These are where possibly a threat. May exist, right, or
I'm not buying it.
you're not buying it.
Sorry.
Or just making it easier to. You know, if this is one. CR, like, yeah, all right.
You come to a meeting and say, hey, guess what happened? A bunch of surveyors come in, they really like this project. We're starting it tomorrow and we'll get that chunk done, you know? Great, but not gonna happen, I don't think, you know? I see it as that's the piece that gets worked on last. And as the whole campaign, everything around is protected. Wow, we've almost protected Dogtown except for this piece.
And you say, how do we change this donut into a bagel? By filling in that hole?
We'd be changing the bagel.
You might not want to put it that way.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
All right.
So, I honestly don't, I know we talked about all these things and I trust your recollection of where we landed more than mine. I wonder if our minutes are clear enough. Back down what we previously said. I also know that, our advisory role is sometimes, overcome by, ideas of staff, of course, you know, and you know, this is how we're gonna do it. I have a vision and I'm taking it. Thank you very much. It's, I know, I don't mean that in a way, but the city will sometimes take an approach that is not consistent. Sure. I don't know, perhaps that also is sort of happening all as well. But we could review the minutes before next meeting and also get an update from Eric. I think Stan.
I'm all in favor of that, but I'm not in favor of doing nothing.
right.
Right. Oh,
I
agreed,
second that.
agreed.
This was so easy to get bogged down. We've been bogging down forever, not
Yep.
just this committee, but.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that up. Any other emerging issues? Questions? Okay. Reviewing action items, I'm gonna take a crack at the minutes for this meeting and the last. And I will ration the semi-annual report and send that out at least a couple weeks prior to. That my top priority. Next week or so. Any review time before. Any other tasks? Good. Right, the date of our next meeting, the fourth Tuesday is the 23rd of September. I will be traveling that week. I will try to tune in remotely. That's possible. I will have a sense a couple days before if it's going to be possible. Or there in March. People.
Did you say you were gonna, say something about succession in terms of?
Oh, no, I just said, I am. My term probably expired 2 Februarys ago, and I was just thinking we have a February coming up. Wanted to,
I was thinking about membership.
with
with,
secession. Well, I wouldn't do that until we have official notice that Richard is
Okay,
leaving.
yeah,
Leaving.
wait
I have
for the-
unofficial
The city.
notice, and
Yeah.
I don't think it's worked its way through the mayor's office yet.
Understood.
Right, my understanding is that, if you're appointed an alternate, unless it's in the ordinance, that the alternate would become the permanent member. Your position is still alternate.
Oh,
Right, and you have to be appointed by the mayor as a full member.
Right.
At
That
that.
would be my assumption, yeah.
Yeah, right, and I looked at our ordinances, and for all of these boards and commissions that do have alternates, it doesn't say, that person automatically does. But de facto is if that person resigns, and you're the alternate, and they don't appoint somebody else that, you'll be there, but.
You have all the pay and benefits of a full-time.
Yeah, that's what I'm anxious about.
That's my understanding.
I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
And when we have a resignation, whether it's Richard or someone else, that would be a good thing to
Yeah.
ensure that idea is coming before the mayor and as he talks about the appointments. And
Right.
Chris was the first alternate, then Tom run. Anyone new should move in as the alternate seat. Okay, good point. Okay, thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Wow. So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, glad you got that. All in favor?
Uh,
None opposed. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Wow. Efficient meeting.